The story of the MTS Oceanos, presented by Disaster Diaries. Hello everybody, welcome back to Disaster Diaries, the show where we explore all kinds of disasters, financial and physical. My name is Namit, and today we will be talking about the MTS Oceanos, which you can see in these two pictures down here in Will. Introduction. MTS Oceanos was a French-built and Greek-owned cruise ship that sank in 1991 due to uncontrolled flooding. Her captain and some of the crew were convicted of negligence for fleeing the ship without helping the passengers, who were subsequently rescued thanks to the efforts of the ship's entertainers. History. Oceanos was launched in July 1952 by Forges et Chantiers de la Giborande in Bordeaux, France as Jean Lebord, the last of four sister ships built for Messageries Maritimes. The ships were used on the Marseilles-Madagascar-Mauritius service. Jean Lebord went through many different owners and name changes such as Jean Lebord, Mykenai, Ancona, and Eastern Princess in the succeeding decades. In 1976, she was acquired by Epirotic Lines of Greece and registered under the name of Oceanos. Oceanos and another Epirotic ship, Apollo 11, were featured in the 1986 film Hard Bodies 2.
See, back then the cruise industry was very different than how it operates today. Many of the up-and-coming cruise lines didn't have the capital or saw it as too much of a risk to build new vessels specifically for the line. So many companies had just purchased older ships, usually built in the 1950s and 60s, and refitted them for regular cruises. The Oceanos was no exception to this, making regular cruises out of South Africa by the late 80s and 90s.
Final voyage. On 3rd August 1991, Oceanos, initially delayed due to a bomb threat, set out from East London, South Africa, and headed for Durban. Captain Yanis Avranis, born 1940, had been an officer for 20 years and a seaman for 30. Oceanos headed into 40-knot winds and 9 meter or 30 feet swells. Usually there would have been a sail-away party on deck with the ship's musicians and British entertainers Moss and Tracy Hills. However, due to the rough seas, this was held inside the Four Seasons Lounge. Most passengers chose to stay in their cabins. The storm worsened as the evening progressed, and when the first sitting of dinner was served, the waiters could hardly carry the trays of food without dropping something. Eventually, Oceanos was rolling about from side to side so badly that crockery and cutlery began sliding off the tables and potted plants fell over. Flooding. While trying to make up time due to the earlier delay, Oceanos encountered rough seas. Earlier repairs to the waste disposal system had not been completed, which meant that a vital ventilation pipe which ran through the watertight aft bulkhead and the non-return valves was not replaced. It is believed that after a series of freak waves slammed against the ship, the pipe's shell plating burst open and began filling the compartment with seawater. At about 9:30 p.m., a muffled explosion was heard and Oceanos lost power. The ship started taking on water, rapidly flooding the engine room. By the next morning, rescuers found Oceanos adrift just off Coffee Bay, listing badly to its starboard side.
Earlier that day, repairs had been performed on the ship's water disposal system. A very important pipe that directly intakes seawater within the vessel had its vital non-return valve not fully replaced. It's believed that after a series of freak waves slamming against the ship, the pipe's shell plating had burst open, spilling seawater, and began filling the compartment. Eventually, that water, going unnoticed, had reached the ship's main propulsion engines and caused an explosion. The Oceanos immediately lost power and propulsion from her two main propellers. Upstairs in the main lounge, performers had been entertaining passengers just as the main engine exploded. A guest had actually been videotaping the show at the same moment the Oceanos lost power, and you can hear the loud thud in the video from below deck.
As no alarm or announcement had been given that the ship was in trouble, several passengers went to the bridge to look for the crew, only to find it unmanned. Marshals then used the radio phone to broadcast a Mayday distress call until the ship answered. Of the 16 rescue helicopters that came out to the ship, 13 were South African Air Force or SAF Pumas, 9 of which hosted 225 passengers off the deck. They were assisted by the lifeboats of the Dutch cargo ship Ned Lloyd Mauritius, which had responded to the distress call, and these were the rescue efforts.
Learned that the South African Air Force set up a multi-helicopter rescue. By 6 a.m., all of the passengers were moved out onto the open decks, awaiting for the helicopter rescue. And after around 4 hours of waiting in complete darkness, the choppers finally came, efficiently running 2 different airlifts simultaneously, each carrying around 20 passengers. Once they were full, they would fly the 3 miles back to shore where they would unload and refuel at the staging area. They would then fly back and repeat. And over the course of a few hours, unbelievably, every single person was off the Oceanos and had been successfully rescued via helicopter and inflatable boats.
All 571 people on board were saved. Hills organized the orderly evacuation of passengers and by helicopters and is generally acknowledged as the leading hero of the event. Hills and fellow entertainer Julian Butler directed the efforts of the entertainment staff, which included Hills' wife Tracy and Robin Boltman, to assess the passengers. According to Boltman, later in the morning, Captain Avranus even contacted me from the shore to ask how things were going. Butler and the Hillses were among the last 5 to be rescued. After many officers and crew had abandoned ship, women and children were given priority when loading the lifeboats by cruise director Lorraine Betts. Later, after the ship's list had become so severe that the remaining lifeboats were rendered useless, the remaining passengers had to be airlifted onto SAF helicopters by means of a safety harness. Betts again insisted that women and children be rescued first. The following day, at approximately 15:30 UTC+2, Oceanos rolled over onto the starboard side and sank by the bow. The last 15 minutes of her sinking was captured on video and broadcast by ABC News. This is it. Aftermath. Captain Avranus and his crew were criticized for leaving hundreds of passengers behind with no one other than the ship's entertainers to help them evacuate. Avranus tried to defend his actions by claiming that he left the ship first to arrange for a rescue effort and then supervised the rescue from a helicopter. He justified his actions saying the ship was in darkness and the batteries on the crew's walkie-talkies had died, meaning that he had no communications with his crew or with other rescue craft. Avranus was quoted as saying, When I order abandon the ship, it doesn't matter what time I leave. Abandon is for everybody. If some people like to stay, they can stay. The captain and some of the crew were convicted of negligence by the Greek Board of Inquiry for fleeing the ship without helping the passengers.
The captain was actually defended by the cruise line, saying passengers misunderstood the crew procedures, saying, quote, "As regards to the captain abandoning the vessel, this is untrue and he has maintained his position throughout in assisting the rescue in the most effective way." You know, looking over the footage again, it looks like he was an integral part of the rescue. Oh wait, no, he's actually just standing there lifeless.
Wreck. The Oceanos wreck lies at a depth of between 92 meters or 302 feet and 97 meters or 318 feet, about 5 kilometers or 3.1 mi offshore. Divers have visited it, but strong currents make it difficult. Photographs taken in 2002 show that the bridge section has collapsed. So it's time for credits. All the pictures in this video have been taken from Google, all the information has been taken from Wikipedia, and the video of the Oceanos sinking has been taken from this video by ABC News video source, and all the other videos shown in the video, in my video that is, have been taken from the Story of the Oceanos YouTube video by Brightson Films. So, thank you for watching. Feel free to comment down below on how the video was and to suggest more video suggestions. Please do subscribe for more content like this. So, that's it for now. Stay home, stay safe, and I'll meet you in the next video. Goodbye.